The offering. The arena was older than most civilizations in the Concord. A monument to survival, conquest, and blood, its scarred stone walls had witnessed the deaths of champions from over 1,000 species. Today, the stands were overflowing with spectators from every corner of the galaxy, chirping, hissing, humming, whistling in anticipation. A voice echoed across the Colosseum, translated in every tongue. By Concord law, in times of challenge, a species may prove its place by trial in the arena. The gates at the far end creaked open. The announcer continued, tone heavy with disbelief. Humanity presents its champion. A girl stepped forward. She couldn't have been more than 17. Thin, barefoot, dressed in ragged fatigues, sleeves torn at the shoulders, collar frayed. Her wrists were bound in magnetic cuffs that unlocked with a soft click as she entered. Her gaze stayed fixed forward. She didn't flinch at the roar of the crowd or the screech of the closing gates behind her. High in the observation box, Grand Strategist Var of the Slar Dominion leaned forward. His translator clicked and growled. She is a child. Ambassador Hale of Earth remained still, hands folded calmly behind his back. She volunteered. Volunteered? You mock the Concord. This is a death sentence. Hale glanced toward the arena. We'll see. Below, the ground rumbled. 5 more gates opened in unison around the arena's edge. From each emerged a nightmare. First came the Crack's Dune Reaper, a 12-foot exoskeletal horror with scythe arms capable of splitting tank plating. Then the Orlan Pack Alpha, 4-eyed and twice the mass of a Terran wolf, its saliva hissing as it dripped onto the sand. A Jarnathi spine crusher, all muscle and bone plate. An Enix Shade Leaper, barely visible as it shimmered in and out of cloaking. And finally, a Vorulan Flame Serpent, gliding in on thermal jets, scales glowing like embers. 5 apex predators. 1 girl. The arena crowd buzzed with hungry tension. In the center, the girl stood still. She didn't assume a stance. She didn't run. She only breathed, slow, steady. The countdown began. 3. The Dune Reaper raised its scythes. 2. The Shade Leaper vanished. 1. The girl blinked just once. The klaxon sounded. What followed was not a fight. It was correction, a reordering of assumptions. The Shade Leaper struck first, dropping from the sky with silent precision. Mid-fall, it found a blade lodged in its throat, a shard of broken restraint from the girl's own cuffs. She'd moved before it had. 2.1 seconds. The Dune Reaper launched. She sidestepped, slid beneath its strike, and used its momentum to launch herself up its carapace. A palm drove into a soft node at its jaw hinge, biological fail point. It convulsed, then collapsed. 5.6 seconds. The flame serpent roared and unleashed a jet of fire. She rolled forward, using the dead Reaper's corpse as cover, then sprinted. Her legs weren't human strong, they were beyond. She jumped, catching the serpent's neck mid-air, driving her heel into its fuel sac. It exploded in flame. 9.8 seconds. The Orlan Alpha pounced. She let it. Its jaws clamped around her arm and shattered. Her skin smoked, but she didn't cry out. She grabbed its face, forced its head sideways, and twisted. 13.2 seconds. The spine crusher hesitated. Too slow. She leapt onto its back, drove a sharpened bone shard into its spine, and held on as it thrashed. It collapsed. 18.0 seconds. Silence. Not just in the arena. Across the broadcast network, millions watched in stillness. The girl stood in the center, bloodied, breathing heavily, surrounded by corpses. Her eyes scanned the stands, not proudly, not defiantly, coldly, as if she were still evaluating threats. In the observation deck, no one spoke. Ambassador Hale exhaled. Now we're done mocking each other. Perhaps we can talk peace. Strategist Var hissed, then turned away. Who is she? A voice whispered behind them. No one answered. Far below, the girl turned her face toward the rising sun above the arena's edge. She said nothing, just raised her hand to her neck, feeling the scar left from the collar they'd made her wear. They had left her here to die. Instead, she reminded them what humanity does when cornered. Instinct over doctrine. They didn't enter the arena for 11 minutes. Security protocols required confirmation that all threats were neutralized. The confirmation came via aerial drones, all of which hesitated before descending. Even machines, it seemed, were unsure of what exactly they were seeing. 5 corpses. One girl, standing alone, her face splattered with black and green blood, her right arm blistered and smoking from the serpent's flame. She hadn't moved since the last kill, like a predator waiting for the next challenge. 24 armored guards finally approached, weapons drawn, rifles trembling slightly. She turned to them slowly, raised both hands, and said one word, "Done." They put her in a sterile observation room with no corners, no shadows, no objects she could weaponize. Walls made of adaptive polyglass, monitored by 7 cameras and 2 armed drones. She sat cross-legged on the floor, unshackled, unbothered. Medical officers in full containment suits tended to her burns in silence. Her skin was already regenerating faster than baseline human biology allowed. One of the medics leaned in, scanning the deep scar along her back. "She shouldn't be alive," he muttered to the other. "She isn't," the other whispered back. "Not fully." The debrief room was colder. Not physically, emotionally. Ambassador Hale sat across from her, hands clasped, eyes unreadable. Behind the glass, a panel of Concord observers watched closely. "You could have killed them slower," Hale said. "I could have," she replied. "You didn't need to kill all of them. They didn't need to surround me." Silence stretched between them. He leaned forward. "Do you know what you just started?" She met his eyes. "No, but I know what I finished." Outside, the observers spoke in hushed tones. "This isn't a human," one hissed, Zarnith neurobiologist. "She's feral. That wasn't training. That was instinct. A pet project, no doubt," said another, her tentacles twitching nervously. "They've hidden their bioweapons under the guise of culture." "No," said strategist Fur quietly. "That wasn't a weapon. That was a prototype. Earth 5 years ago." The camera footage was grainy, time-stamped, and heavily classified. A child, no older than 12, stood at the edge of a ravine. Behind her, a drone's voice crackled, "Survive for 72 hours. No extraction. No assistance." The girl turned, her face streaked with mud and blood, and stepped into the wilderness. 3 days later, the drone returned. She was waiting, alone, covered in lacerations, surrounded by the carcasses of 2 predators native to the Amazon exclusion zone. The file name read, "Project Feral, Subject 03, Reyes Calla." Back in the debrief room, Calla remained still. "Do you know what they think of you now?" Hale asked. "Yes," she replied. "They're afraid." He didn't smile, but he didn't look disappointed either. "Good," he said. "Let them be." In the Concord chambers, panic bloomed behind diplomatic language. Species that had once dismissed humanity as underdeveloped now revised their tactical threat assessments. Internal memos quietly elevated Earth to potential Tier 2 military power, on par with established galactic empires. A motion was tabled, immediate restriction on human genetic manipulation programs. It failed by a single vote. The representative from the Arboreal Collective had abstained. "Nature," she had said, "has a right to defend itself." Back in her room, Calla stared at the white ceiling, arms behind her head. A small vent hummed softly above. She closed her eyes and remembered. The swamps of Louisiana, the glacial cliffs of northern Siberia, the coral mazes of the drowned Pacific. Each environment had nearly killed her. Each time, she had adapted, survived, and learned to hunt what hunted her. Her memories weren't of family or school or home. They were of blood, instinct, and silence. Her first kill hadn't been in the arena. It had been on her 13th birthday. A mountain lion, no weapons, just her hands and a rock. The guard brought food. He slid the tray through a slot, keeping his eyes down. "Thank you," she said. He hesitated. Are you human?" She looked at him for a long time. Not angry, just calculating. "Yes," she said, "but I don't think that means what you think it does." They had left a girl in the arena. Not a soldier, not a machine, just a girl raised to be more than prey. And now the galaxy was asking the question no one had dared to speak aloud. How many more like her are there? The silence of the crowd. No one celebrated. After the arena was cleaned, no songs were sung. No victories were toasted. Spectators exited the stands in silence, their multiple limbs, wings, or hooves carrying them away with a kind of reverence laced with fear. Even war-hardened warriors spoke in whispers. She didn't hesitate. A Zarnith warrior muttered to his captain. She didn't enjoy it. Either, the captain replied. That's what makes her worse. Calla sat alone in a high-security observation suite on Concord Station Prime, orbiting the neutral zone. No chains, no restraints. She didn't need them. The glass was reinforced with neutron-bonded alloy. 3 guards stood outside. They didn't look in. A drone hovered above, tracking every breath. She didn't move much, just sat, arms crossed loosely over her knees, eyes focused on nothing. But her mind was cataloging everything: wall thickness, sensor patterns, oxygen vent timing. Training she couldn't switch off. In the central Concord chamber, representatives from 70 species convened. A hologram of the arena played silently behind them. 5 apex predators lying dead, a single human standing among them, unspeaking, unmoved. Strategist Var stood. She is not a civilian. She is a weapon. Ambassador Hale replied calmly. She is a citizen of Earth. You demanded a champion. We provided one. Murmurs filled the chamber. She is enhanced. Unnaturally. She violates Concord bioethics. She didn't use a single weapon. Hale interrupted. No implants. No tech. She's flesh and blood. The arboreal delegate blinked slowly. Then you've changed your flesh and blood. Hale didn't deny it. 2 years ago, Earth. In a black site beneath the Rockies, scientists watched as Subject 03 scaled a cliff face with bare hands, trailing blood. Her broken arm had reset overnight. Her pulse remained level, even under starvation. She's adapting faster than projected, one tech whispered. Another checked her tablet. Neural mapping shows permanent restructuring. Limbic systems changed. Less empathy, more pattern analysis. She's not a soldier, the lead researcher said. No, came the response. She's a survivor. They watched as Calla dropped from the cliff, twisted midair, and landed in a crouch, cat-like, silent, unafraid. Back on the station, a panel of Concord scientists gathered behind one-way glass to assess her. Her biochemistry reads human baseline, except for the adrenal ratios. Off the charts. She's producing cortisol and dopamine simultaneously. That's impossible, a Clickta xenobiologist buzzed. That's a contradiction, fear and pleasure at once. She's not afraid. She's alert. Then what triggers her aggression? She doesn't have aggression. She has response algorithms hard-coded through trauma. The lead examiner looked down at her notes. She's not a predator, she said quietly. She's a mirror. Calla was finally brought in for questioning again. Not with Hale this time. With Concord-appointed inquisitors. 4 of them, each from a different species. Each armed, even though protocol forbade it. She entered calmly, her wounds from the arena mostly healed. Her eyes scanned the room once and settled on the shortest path to the exit. You were created for violence, said the Zarnith Inquisitor. Calla tilted her head. I was created to survive. Same thing, muttered the Enix interrogator. Were you trained to kill those creatures? The third asked. No, she said. I trained by surviving worse. Worse, the fourth leaned forward. Worse than apex predators. Calla looked at him, really looked. People. Silence. Who built your conditioning program? The Enix asked. Your responses aren't natural. They're engineered. Calla blinked slowly. They dropped me in fire and expected me to crawl out unchanged. Why didn't you attack the guards afterward? The Zarnith asked. They weren't predators. Just watchers. The Inquisitors shared a glance. Then the arboreal delegate entered the room. She studied Calla for several seconds before speaking. You could destroy this station if we left you unsupervised. I could, Calla said. Will you? No. Why? Calla looked her dead in the eyes. Because I already won. Back on Earth, Project Feral's files were sealed again. Access was locked behind new clearance levels. Quietly, new facilities were reactivated. The last note in the final report read, "Only one subject reached full adaptation. Others failed or broke. Recommendation: cease replication attempts. She is not a model. She is an anomaly." Calla lay on her cot that night, eyes open in the dark, heart rate steady. She thought of a memory, maybe real, maybe implanted, of standing in a forest at dusk, watching wolves circle. She hadn't run. They had. That's when she first understood. Fear wasn't something you felt. It was something you caused. They had sent a girl into the arena. What came out wasn't a victor. It was a question. How much of humanity is still waiting to be unleashed? They made her this way. The transport ship was supposed to be secure. A Concord black vessel, designed to ferry the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. It boasted neural lock cells, gravitic restraints, and a crew trained in worst-case protocol. Its destination was a classified research facility in the Ozone Belt. On board, in the deepest part of the ship, sat Calla Reyes. She wore a plain gray suit, hands clasped loosely in her lap. The guards didn't speak to her. They barely looked at her. Even they didn't know why she had agreed to board so willingly. She hadn't been forced. She had volunteered. "It's easier this way," she had said. Ambassador Hale watched the ship leave from the orbital station's viewport. His reflection looked tired, older than it had an hour ago. "You didn't stop it," the arboreal delegate said beside him. "She didn't ask me to," Hale replied. "She shouldn't be studied like an animal." Hale's voice was quiet. She already was. 3 hours into the journey, the transport's internal monitors detected a systems anomaly. The lead technician frowned. "Power fluctuation in cell block theta. Probably sensor echo," the pilot said, yawning. But the fluctuation wasn't an echo. It was calculated. Calla's body temperature had dropped precisely 2 degrees. Enough to confuse thermal tracking. Enough to slow her pulse to near sleep state. Just enough to lower the guard. She moved when they blinked. By the time alarms blared, 2 guards were down, their weapons dismantled, and their bodies unconscious, not dead. She wasn't here to kill. She was here to leave a message. Bridge lockdown protocols failed in under 90 seconds. Calla didn't need tools. The human nervous system, her nervous system, had been restructured to interface with basic electrical nodes. She used her fingertips like keys, opening pathways that weren't supposed to exist. She stepped onto the bridge calmly, quietly. The pilot stared, paralyzed. "W, what do you want?" She didn't answer. She patched directly into the ship's comms and began to transmit. Across the Concord's central communications net, broadcasts were interrupted. Civilian channels flickered. Military feeds were overridden. One by one, every major species saw the same thing. Calla Reyes, standing on the bridge of a ship that was supposed to contain her. Her voice was steady. Her face, unreadable. "They put me in a cage and threw monsters at me. I survived. That's all. That's what I was made to do." She paused. "But here's what they didn't expect. I learned. Not just how to kill. How to watch. How to see what scared them." Another pause. This one deliberate. They left the human girl in the arena. 5 apex predators dropped in 18 seconds. And I was just the first. The feed cut to black. Concord stations went into immediate alert. Starships scrambled. Border policies shifted. Emergency councils convened. But no one knew where she went. The transport ship was found adrift, its systems intact, its crew alive but sedated. Not one fatality. She hadn't escaped. She had vanished. Back on Earth, in a facility buried beneath kilometers of reinforced basalt, red lights blinked green again for the first time in years. Old protocols reactivated. Files labeled Project Feral reopened. A new line was added to the top of the case file. Subject 03, Reyes Calla, active. Below it, another entry had appeared. Subject 04, status, standby. Ambassador Hale sat alone in a dark room, watching the footage of her transmission for the 12th time. She was never the weapon, he said quietly. His aide looked confused. Then what was she? Hale, close his eyes. The warning. In the edge systems, out on forgotten moons and frontier worlds, whispers spread. A girl had stood against monsters and won. Not with tech, not with armor, just instinct sharpened into something unholy. Alien empires reevaluated their military protocols. Colonies debated reinforcing their borders. Mercenary guilds offered triple bounties for human intel, because now they understood. Humanity wasn't weak. It had just been restrained. And Calla Reyes? She was what happened when the leash snapped. She hadn't escaped into the void to hide. She was waiting. Somewhere out there, the girl who should have died was watching from the shadows, deciding who needed to learn what it meant to fear a human. And the next time they sent monsters, they'd better hope they weren't hunting her.